नमो नमः। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। हरिः ओम श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। Namaste. This is the 15th day of the course on Sanatana Dharma for youth. Today is the second session on Dharma Shastras and social structure, which will be handled by Shriman Nithin Sridharji. Over to you, Sridharji.
Thank you very much. Let me begin with a prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Hum Kara Shavarude Nila Nirajalochane Trailokaihi Shive Gauri Kalika Vai Namostute Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Namaste, good evening everyone. I will continue with the discussion from yesterday. The topic given to me is Dharma Shastra and social structure. And in yesterday's session, we saw what Dharma is, and we also saw that what is the role played by Dharma Shastra. That is just like for studying physics, we have to go to a physics textbooks. For example, written by Resnick Halliday or whoever the authors are. Similarly, for knowing Dharma, we have to consult the Dharma Shastra, the treatises that impart knowledge about Dharma. And in the case of Dharma, this is especially so that the Shastra are our only true refuge, as Bhagavan Krishna says in Gita, because Dharma, by definition, is adrishta. You cannot see it, you cannot perceive it, you cannot touch it, you cannot perceive it using your sensory organs. So Dharma deals with things such as punya, Sarga, Moksha, Chitta Shuddhi, all of them are beyond empirical perception. Therefore, the Shastra, the Veda, the Smriti, the Itihasa Purana alone are our refuge. So now, moving forward, now we have studied, understood very briefly what Dharma is and what Dharma Shastra are. So coming to the social structure part, Dharma Shastra and social structure, what is the vision of Dharma Shastra for society? So we will begin the discussion today. We will continue this discussion tomorrow also. So we will begin that discussion today with laying out certain basic principles from where the Dharma Shastra perspective is coming and how the Dharma Shastra has actually built the worldview. What is their vision for socio-cultural aspect of a society? What is the vision for social order? And all these things we will discuss very briefly again, because the time available is very limited. Let me share my screen without is this visible to everybody? Can anybody confirm whether the screen is visible?
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I have titled the second lecture today as the ritualistic socio-cultural vision of Dharma Shastra. So what we were speaking, Dharma Shastra and social structure, is the socio-cultural vision of Dharma Shastra. And I have added another adjective to it called the ritualistic, because that is the key element of the Dharma Shastric vision of a society. Dharma Shastric vision of an ideal society, Dharma Shastric vision of a most beneficial socio-cultural order. So it has to be ritualistic. And why it is so, what it means, we will just see in this presentation. So we will begin with the very fundamentals. So I'm sure most of the audience, since you have been taking this course on Sanatana Dharma, I'm sure you have already learned about the four Purusharthas, the Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. So Purushartha, Purusha means human, a person. Artha means meaning. Artha could also mean resource. Artha could also mean goal. So the four Purusharthas are four aims of life or four goals of life or four pursuits which will make our life fulfilling and meaningful and fulfilling and so four meanings, four entities or four ways in which we can find meanings in life. So all these are can be an interpretation of Purushartha, and they are four in number because in these four categories all human desires are covered. Everything under the sun, every human desire, because desires are innumerable, they're infinite. But our rishis, in the great wisdom, they were able to create these four categories, very grand, very broad categories, under which all these infinite desires, it doesn't matter whether it was a desire of a person 5,000 years ago, or whether it is a desire of a person today, or whether it will be a desire of a person 10,000 years from now. All of them, these are all universal categories: Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. And in a sense, these are all what makes the life meaningful. These are the goals of life, fourfold goals of life. So what are this? Artha refers to material prosperity. Kama refers to material pleasure. I have made a mistake in the sentence here. Artha and Kama refers to pursue material, worldly prosperity and worldly pleasure, it has to be. So Artha is all about, it's not just about money. Money is there, yes, but also prosperity, resources. Artha gives the means to lead a better life. And Kama is about pursuing desires, pursuing pleasures, especially pleasures which are sensory, including the sexual desires, desire for family, desire for romantic relationship, desire to experience pleasure out of desire. So somebody who only pursues Artha, for example, if he's Artha oriented person, he would perhaps hoard a lot of resources. He would have invested crores of rupees in banks and share market, whatever. But he may not be actually investing that money in something through which he can directly derive pleasure. His happiness is in just knowing that he has a very big bank balance. On the other hand, a karma oriented person is somebody who will pursue objects to derive direct pleasure from it, direct pleasure in the form of through his five senses. So he would perhaps invest in certain objects or certain things through which he can gain happiness. So that is the nature of Artha and Kama. And then there is Moksha, which is the ultimate goal of life, which is, we need to put it very briefly. We will see in more detail at the towards the end. Put it very briefly, moksha is the ultimate liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Because the Hindu Dharma says, in this world, the happiness you get is impermanent. That is, it is transient. With this happiness always comes sorrow. You're happy now, that it will not last. It will replaced by sorrow after a while. But there is something which is permanently happiness, which can give permanent happiness, and that is moksha. As long as you are in this cycle of birth and death, there will be sorrow. To attain permanent happiness means to liberate yourself, to go transcend the cycle of birth and death, and that is called as moksha. Now, dharma we already discussed yesterday, and I'll just do a quick recap here. Dharma is about the connecting principle which connects artha and kama on one hand and moksha on the other. It is the ethical way of life. It is the dharmic way of life. It is those actions which uphold and sustain us, which are most beneficial to us, which are able to lead us to sukha, happiness in the true sense, heaven, swarga, purification of the mind, chitta vishuddhi, eventually facilitating us towards moksha. So it is dharma is the key which helps us to attain all the four purusharthas. It is ethical living, duty-bound living, responsible living, should I say, a restrained based living. It is not a reckless pursuit of artha kama. If you pursue artha kama in isolation, that is reckless pursuit. There will be sorrow. A dharma-based pursuit of artha kama is a responsible and restrained way of pursuing. That way, you are safe. You won't commit papa, you won't commit adharma. You will fulfill your desires of artha kama staying within the boundary of dharma. And slowly, this will help you to create purification of the mind, leading to moksha ultimately, eventually. Now, to just make sense of this, especially because the audience is younger audience, you might have heard about this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, pyramid of needs. So I just made a comparison here. Though I strongly believe that there is no need for such a comparison, we can and we should understand our dharmika concepts on their own basis. But still, it's not a bad idea to do a comparison to just make sense of the things. So the Maslow's pyramid of needs, basically Maslow categorized the needs into 5 categories and put it in a hierarchical basis. The very basic needs are physiological needs such as food, shelter, etc. Food, water, warmth, rest, and safety needs, security, safety, shelter, all these things. So these are the basic needs. Once these basic needs are satisfied, अभी जैसे we have a saying in Hindi, I mean, जैसे अभी the saying is पहले रोटी फिर भगवान. I mean, जब only when your hunger and other things are fulfilled, then only you will turn towards Bhagwan. You will turn towards spirituality. You will turn towards higher aesthetics or higher, aspirations in life. When the very basic needs are not there, you will be so focused on that, you won't be able to focus on other things. So the basic needs are physiological and safety needs. And once they are fulfilled to some extent, then the heart of man, then the mind of the man, then our emotions, then you will turn towards other higher needs such as psychological needs. The needs such as belongingness, love, friendship, relationship, romantic relationship, or the family relationship, the kinship, affinity, and then further is esteem needs, the prestige, feeling of accomplishments, self-confidence, self-respect. So these are all psychological needs. And once all these are satisfied to some extent, then one will turn inwards in some sense towards what Maslow calls as self-actualization. Basically, it is about focusing on achieving one's own full potential, including in creative areas. So full potential, what one can truly do, what one is skillful, what one is fully motivated to do, full manifestation of that potential. Now, if you superimpose our Hindu Purushartha model into that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can very easily see that the basic needs such as physiological and safety needs come under Artha. In our model, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, leave Dharma aside for a while. There is a reason why it is in the first. But after Dharma comes Artha, because that is more basic, safety and physiological. Then comes Kama, wherein the love, belongingness, relationship, esteem, confidence, creativity, all this will come. And then the higher than that, the self-actualization part, in a sense, corroborates with Dharma, because Dharma, we have a concept of Swadharma, our own duty, through which we can find our own fulfillment. But the Maslow's pyramid does not have the notion of moksha, transcendence. At least the original model did not have it, but we have it. And that is the beauty of Hindu Purusharthas, because the entire human pursuit has to be oriented towards moksha. And the way to orient this is to make the dharma as the primary. That is why in our model, it is not artha, kama, dharma, moksha. It is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma comes first, and within the gambit of dharma, the artha and kama comes, because dharma is the principle which is enabling you to pursue artha and kama in such a way that that pursuit is actually oriented towards moksha as well. So you are able to pursue artha and kama while being rooted and oriented and anchored, while having a vision upwards towards that moksha, which you may achieve in some life in future, but you are working towards that slowly. So now with this understanding, and that is, it is in the context of this purusharthas that we have to understand what dharma is and what is the social vision, socio-cultural vision of Dharma Shastras. So this comes to the very question of what is the purpose of Dharma Shastra. Why the genre of text called Dharma Shastra is there? In the Mahabharata, it lists 14 Vidyasthanas, 14 plus 4, 18 Vidyasthanas. Vidyasthana means abode of Vidya, different branch of knowledge. And one such branch is Dharma Shastra. So what is the purpose of this Dharma Shastra? Of course, there are many answers to this. But we will only see one particular answer which is very, very relevant to us for this course. And the answer is that the purpose of the Dharma Shastra is to impart authentic knowledge about Dharma, that is about actions that lead to overall well-being of an individual as well as overall well-being of the larger society. You remember our yesterday's discussion about Dharma being means for Abhyudaya and Nishreyasa, overall well-being, material well-being and spiritual well-being. Therefore, the well-being that is being spoken at the individual as well as social level, because society is nothing but a group of individuals. Therefore, when the individual welfare is spoken about, is ensured, social welfare is also included in it. And individual welfare is also possible only in a society which is conducive to it. So this well-being, therefore, it's not a just welfare, not just a materialistic welfare, but this well-being is both materialistic, that is in sense, it is focused on artha and kama, but more importantly, it is also oriented towards swarga and moksha, the adrishta phalas, the true happiness. It is in the whole karmic cycle of janma, marana, punarjanma, life, birth, death, no, and rebirth, the whole cycle. So swarga, moksha, it is oriented towards that. So that is the purpose of Dharma Shastra. Dharma Shastra wants to impart knowledge about human actions, those actions such that the individual as well as the whole society, while pursuing Artha and Kama, they become oriented towards upwards, towards Swarga and Moksha. To put it differently, the goal of the Dharma Shastra, the purpose of the Dharma Shastra is to enunciate a means for everybody in the universe, everybody in the society. Enunciate a means for everyone to attain all the four Purusharthas, and towards this end, to achieve this end, it also gives us a socio-cultural vision that is oriented towards not just Arthakama, as modern understanding of society, sociology, etc. is, but here the vision, socio-cultural vision, is rooted in Arthakama, but it is also oriented towards Punya, Swarga, Moksha, all these Adrishta Phalas. But then the obvious, it is easy to say a statement that it is oriented this, it is oriented that. But what exactly does this mean? What does orienting human actions and society as a whole towards Punya, Swarga and Moksha mean? To understand this, let us just briefly understand what moksha is. What the Hindu concept, or more properly the Upanishadic, the Vedantic concept of moksha is, to make sense of how based on that the Dharma Shastra builds up its socio-cultural vision. So we'll next see what moksha is and what is the roadmap, what is the spiritual roadmap that individual has to travel to attain that moksha. So moksha, very basic, very fundamental definition we already saw is liberation from the karmic cycle of birth, death and rebirth. We already saw this. And another connecting definition is, of course, we saw this again, I just briefly mentioned this, that the world we live in, the happiness, everybody wants to be happy and nobody wants to be sorrow. But the happiness we get in this world is temporary, it is always accompanied by sorrow. So what we are truly desiring is to attain a state of permanent happiness, a state of infinite happiness without even a trace of sorrow. And such a state itself is called as moksha or ananda. So this liberation of karmic cycle of birth and death, etc., liberation from this cycle leads to that state of permanent happiness. But how does this liberation work? How do we gain this liberation? What is the means? What does this liberation even entail? So that there comes the Vedantic definition, the third definition of moksha, which is as tattva jnana, knowledge of reality, or alternatively the other names are Brahma jnana, knowledge of Brahman, or Atma jnana, knowledge of one's true self, or more comprehensive definition is Brahma Atma Aikya Jnana, knowledge of identity between Brahman and Atman. Again, there is no time to elaborate, but I'll to just briefly, I'll just mention what this means is the Upanishads, which is the core Shastra, the core part of the Veda, it is called Veda Anta, the zenith, the crown jewel of Veda, the teachings of the Veda. The Upanishads say the root of bondage of the samsara is ignorance about the true nature of reality. We think in our everyday experience, we see that I am this person, so and so person, and I do this, I do that, I have this house, I have that. So there is I as a body mind complex. And then there is world, which is around me. And then we see that there is a third entity called Ishvara, who is the creator of the world and who is the giver of the fruits of action. So in our transactional everyday world, we perceive three things: myself, the world, and Ishvara. Or at least if you reduce that further, I will at least perceive two things: myself as a subject and the world as the object. Now, the Upanishads say that this notion of duality or Dvaita, that I am separate, the world is separate, or this notion that there is a trinity of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, separate entities, this notion itself is a product of ignorance. Ignorance about reality. What is this reality? Reality is that there is only one reality. There is only one substance. There is only one reality called Brahman. The Upanishad says, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, Neha Nanasti Chana. Brahman pervades everything. There is no multiplicity. Neha Nanasti Kanchana, there is no multiplicity. It says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman. So this is further statement. There is only one Brahman, there Brahman alone exists, and what I consider as I am also in reality am Brahman. So this is called Brahma Atma Aikya Jnana. Brahma is the Srishtikarta Ishvara, the reality of Ishvara, and Atma is my real self. Aikya is identity. Jnanam is knowledge. This knowledge about identity between Brahman and Atman. So the Vedanta says it is the ignorance about this identity which creates this duality, and it is this ignorance which causes the bondage. Because we think that I am different, the world is different, Ishvara different, we have that leads to desires for achieving something outside us, and that leads to a cycle of birth and death and all those things. But so the solution is to attainment of knowledge about the true nature of reality, true nature of one's own self, that I am not this body and mind complex, I am in reality Brahman itself, And this Brahman is the only reality that exists, only Vastu that exists. So Brahma, Atma, Aikya Jnana, this knowledge liberates. This knowledge gives permanent happiness. This knowledge is moksha. So now, while this is the ultimate goal of moksha, Vedanta does not stop here. For example, Ishopanishad is a wonderful text. It gives a very wonderful roadmap of spiritual journey of any persons. The landmarks of this journey, the roadmap given by the Ishopanishad is applicable irrespective of the path we are taking currently. It gives about the journey that we have to make over many lives. So I will talk about this journey very briefly from the reverse point of view, from the goal to where we are currently. So the ultimate goal of life is moksha, and we already saw moksha means attaining the knowledge about reality that Brahman and Atman are identical. So how to attain this knowledge? How to attain this Atma Jnana? The means to attain that Atma Jnana is sannyasa, followed by the practice of what is called as Jnana Sadhana. Jnana Sadhana basically means Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasa, leading to Atma Sakshatkara or realization. So again, we don't have time to go deep into it, but basically what this means is when one's developed deep dispassion for worldly objects, then one can take renunciation and then fully focus upon practicing a sadhana or a spiritual effort whose sole purpose is attaining that jnana. And that sadhana includes first shravana, listening from teacher the teachings about ultimate reality. Manana is reflection upon that teachings and getting clarified all the intellectual doubts, intellectual clarity. And then there is nididhyasa, contemplation and meditation of that reality, that teaching, to internalize the teaching. When this contemplation fructifies, it leads to Atma Jnana, the realization, direct realization, not indirect knowledge from just listening or reading, but direct realization, which is called as Atma Sakshatkara Anubhuti or Aparoksha Jnana, about that Aham Brahmasmi, I am Atma Brahma of this nature, which is liberating. So this is called Jnana Sadhana or Shravana Chatushtaya. So this Jnana Sadhana is the means to attain Atma Jnana and Moksha. How to who are eligible to practice the Jnana Sadhana? What is the eligibility criteria? These eligibility qualifications are called as Sadhana Chatushtaya. There are fourfold competency criteria, eligibility criteria, which are first needed to be developed to become eligible to take, eligible to practice the Jnana Sadhana in a meaningful way. What are those Sadhana Chatushtaya? There is Viveka, the discriminating intellect that can discriminate between what is eternal, what is temporary, and what is eternal. Vairagya, that is deep dispassion, detachment towards the world, so that you become eligible for renunciation. Then there is a group of Shatka Sampati, group of six qualities that are all connected to how best you can control your mind, how best you control your senses, and how best you can focus your mind in meditation. Ekagra Chitta. And finally, Mumukshutva, which is burning desire for liberation. So you have to first develop these qualities, eligibility qualities, to even start practicing Shravana Chatushtaya or Jnana Sadhana. Now, how to develop this sadhana chatushtaya, fourfold qualities? The thing is, our mind is filled with what is called as ashtapashas or arishadvargas, six passions of the mind, six enemies of the mind called kama, krodha, lobha, etc. That is attachment, anger, jealousy, pride. All these things are there which affect us, which affect all of us. So we have to first overcome them, and this overcoming of them is called as chitta shuddhi or purification of the mind. And this purification of the mind, only when you get this purification of the mind, then you will be able to attain the fourfold qualities such as viveka, vairagya, etc. How do we attain this purification of the mind? It is through the practice of karma and bhakti. Karma anushtana, practice of dharma, not any karma, we will come to that, and practice of bhakti, which is upasana, which is meditation, which involves all kinds of bhakti. Bhakti could be deep meditation, bhakti could be ritualistic practice, seva, it could be practice of devotion in the devotional sampradayas, it could be anything. Now our focus here is karma, and what does this practice of karma entail? It entails practice of samanya dharma and practice of vishesha dharma, leading to practice of karma yoga or nishkama karma. You see, Bhagavad Gita is the core text which speaks about nishkama karma. But nishkama karma speaks about how to do action. That is in a nishkama way, that is without desire for fruits of action. But it does not tell what actions to be done and what actions to be avoided. Instead, Krishna and Bhagavan Krishna in Gita says, to know about what actions to be done, to know what actions to be avoided, consider the Shastras, the other Shastras, different Shastras. What are those Shastras? They are the Dharma Shastras. The commentators such as Adi Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhusudhan Saraswati all say that the Shastras the Bhagavan is referring is Veda, Smriti, Itihasa, Purana. So these are the Dharma Shastras. They tell what actions to be done and what actions to be not to be done. And Gita is telling how to do it. So there are two parts to karma anusthana. One is the what part, what actions to be done. The second is how part, that is nishkama. Karma yoga is about how to do it. We have to do it without desire for fruits. But that is not easy. You start with doing actions with desire for fruits, but doing dharmika actions. So karma anushtana is dharma anushtana. And this dharma anushtana, the Dharma Shastras tell us, are broadly two types. There is samanya dharma. Samanya dharma means actions or categories of actions which are common, applicable to entire humanity without any distinction of gender, race, nationality, ethnicity, whatever kind of no distinction, sadharana, common to everybody. And then there is vishesha dharma, a tailor-made dharma, which is very unique to an individual, which is the path through which is beneficial only to that individual. So there are different ways. For example, there are certain dharmas that are only suggested for men, and there are certain others which are only suggested for women. So it is those when they are performed by those for whom it is suggested, they alone will gain the fruit of it. Others doing it will not gain the fruit. Similarly, there are many other categorizations. There is Vishesha Dharma, there is Kala Dharma, that is what to be performed in the morning, what to be performed in the night, what to be avoided in the night, what to be avoided certain days. There is Yuga Dharma, what was true for Satya Dharma, what is true today in Kali Yuga. There is notion of, and most important feature of this Vishesha Dharma is Varnashrama Dharma, which is a ritualistic function. It is a definition of ritualistic function in a society, a ritualistic social order, we could say. So this Vishesha Dharma speaks about these tailor-made dharmas at the individual level, but which are ritualistic, that is, they are oriented towards Swarga and Moksha. And as such, to facilitate that, it also suggests is ritualistic social order. That is what this Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, the Varna, and the Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa, Ashramas. That is how they have to be understood as ritualistic function in the society, a socio-functional vision, a socio-cultural vision, which is rooted in ritualism, which is rooted in a ritualistic vision. So this is the content of the Karma Yoga. And it is through such performance of Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma that one is able to eventually walk towards moksha and creating a society or at least a socio-cultural vision, a social order which can facilitate such performance of dharma at an individual level is the goal of Dharma Shastra. So the Dharma Shastric vision of social structure is such a social order which is able to facilitate an individual to work towards his or her Abhyudaya Nishrayasa. And we know this Abhyudaya Nishrayasa from the Shastras itself. So that is why this socio-cultural vision is oriented towards moksha, towards upwards, towards Varga and moksha. And what I just mentioned, I've just written here again. I think we are running a time, and I'll just conclude. I think this is the last slide. Yeah, this is the last slide. So the Dharma Shastras, in essence, basically take into account the human need for spiritual emancipation, for moksha, for eternal happiness, and for finding a meaning, higher meaning in life. Because only pursuing Arthakama, after a time, you will lose meaning. The higher meaning is dharma and moksha. And in response to this human need for immense spiritual fulfillment and higher meaning, the Dharma Shastras devise a socio-cultural framework, a vision of human life and social order that facilitates the spiritual upliftment of individuals by incorporating the spiritual roadmap into its foundational structure. So the spiritual roadmap is this roadmap that I just mentioned, moksha and the path to attain that moksha. So it incorporates this roadmap into its very vision, very foundational structure of its vision, in the form of Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma, a practice of which will help an individual to walk the path towards moksha. So the Dharma Shastras focus on enunciating in detail the principles of ideal, the human values, human responsibilities, human ethics, all through these categories of Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma. And within this Vishesha Dharma, there are many sub-categories: Purusha Dharma, Stri Dharma, Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma, Varnashrama Dharma, Kala Dharma, Desha Dharma, so many other things. Pitra Dharma, Putra Dharma, Raja Dharma, Praja Dharma, all this comes under that. But the most important feature of this Vishesha Dharma is, of course, Varnashrama Dharma, because all other types of Dharma are also, in a sense, spoken as a sub-element of these Varnashrama schemata, because Varnashrama is essentially a ritualistic category, and we will see that in tomorrow session. We will see tomorrow session briefly what Samanya Dharma are. Samanya Dharma are basically ethical values, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, etc., which are very basis, which are the feet on which we can stand. And the Vishesha Dharma are the tailor-made aspects, the ritualistic aspects that help one further. So by anchoring the discourse on human actions to Dharma, Samanya and Vishesha, the Dharma Shastras ritualize human activities and thus orienting them towards Swarga and Moksha. With this, I end the session. I hope I was able to convey what I wanted to convey in a very simple manner. I'm not sure how much I have been successful, and I'll really love to have some feedback from especially the young participants. But I open the floor for questions. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Okay, ధన్యవాదములండి. All students, put your comments, your opinion, your feedback into the chat box now. Take 1 minute. All of you do it, whatever way you feel. The speaker is asking you for giving feedback, so you may give it. Anybody? Let me see the chat box.
I think either everybody has understood everything, or they have not, or everything has flown beyond their head.
Generally, these engineering students are like that only.
No, it's okay. I hope they have understood something meaningful.
They understand everything. The only thing is that they don't come out with questions and then discussion. Till the time they are provoked, some sort of provocation is required. Tomorrow you may think of something involving them also. Chat box, anybody put some remarks? Akshay, Vivek, Rajesh. Okay, now you can unmute yourself and then speak. Whatever doubts you have on this social structure based on Dharma Shastras.
The presentation has been absolutely clear, simple, and to the understanding of the students as well as the elders.
Okay.
So we need not have any doubt on that, because we are listening to it as a what do you say, elderly people, at the same time as a student also. So it is very, very clear. The students, they take a bit of, they follow the Newton's first law, so they are in the inertial stage. So the presentation, if this shared with the students, I think they can benefit from it by seeing again. And the recording as well is there. No, you need not do anything. The recording is there.
Okay.
We go
Anybody
for
else
Pranadana.
other than students wants to ask any question?
Yeah, the elders are also very, because it is
Mahodaya,
so
I have
clear.
one question.
Right.
Saugandhi here. When everything was so systematic, what went wrong that when we are going through what we are going through now of Adharma? What is the thing that resulted in the cow standing 4 legs on Dharma to the 1 leg? Like, what went wrong? Something's for them.
Okay. So if I have to answer in a philosophical way, because the question does mention about the 4 legs and the 1 leg, wonderful reference to the Bhagavata Purana story. So as the story itself says, the Shastras say, if everything is either too good or too bad, then both of them is stagnant. That means that the time for annihilation has come, because see, constant stagnant means there is nothing else further. So Srishti by definition is has to be forward moving. See, our vision of the cosmology, the universe, is that it's not linear, right? So we are in a cyclic motion. There is Srishti, and then there is Sthiti, and then there is Laya, and there is a state of potentiality, and then there is a remanifestation of Srishti, and so this keeps happening. And within that Srishti also there is many smaller cycles of Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, etc. happening. So what is this Sthiti? Sthiti is not stagnation. Sthiti is also forward moving, but in a orderly manner or in a more stabilized manner, right? Now, how does it move forward? That is what this yuga is. It is the nature of reality itself that it goes through cycles wherein there are areas such as Satyuga wherein Dharma stands on 4 legs. That is, Dharma is almost, it is in its fullest strength, you could say. See, even in Satyuga, there were asuras and such things happened, right? It was not that there were no asuras per se, but it was, comparatively speaking, the Dharma stood in its fullest manifestation. And the answer Bhagavad Shankaracharya himself gives in his introduction to Gita, if I am not mistaken, that because of Kama Krodha, because people develop this attachment and other, the passions of the mind, slowly the adharma took root. So that is how the yuga changed from Satyuga to Treta happened, and then Treta to Dwapara happened, and from Dwapara to Kali Yuga happened. Because it is the human mind which is both the strongest as well as the weakest link in the chain. Because we are susceptible to our desires, susceptible to anger, jealousy, and all these things. So when this change, the Dwapara to Kali Yuga change happened, so the change is such that the human intellect has deeply become diminished. Human physical prowess, physical power has diminished. Overall capability has diminished, and adharma has increased. It is the nature of the world in Kali Yuga, as far as there is. Kali Yuga is a constant state of apadharma. So there is the Shastras which speak about Varnashrama Dharma and all other things, dharmas and everything. They speak from some ideal perspective. But on the ground, in Kali Yuga, it is impossible to practice them in that ideal format. So in Swami Vidyaranya, in his commentary on Parashara Smriti, he asked this question: does it mean we should simply give up all the practices and simply take to adharma? No. Obviously, even though ideal way it is not possible to practice dharma, we have to practice to the best of our ability, because it is dharma that gives us sukha, swarga and moksha. It is dharma which is beneficial to us. And Krishna also says in Gita, Swalpameva, even a little bit of practice of dharma keeps away, frees us from great fear. So, we should not worry ourselves with the fact that we are living in a apadharma condition, wherein the adharma has a heavier hand. But however, even within the Kali Yuga, within its limited context also, there will be cycles wherein dharma is in a better condition and wherein dharma is in a worse condition. So for example, in a pre-Islamic era, if I have to speak about history, of course we were in a better condition. Take Gupta Empire, take the Maurya Empire, take all these Hindu empires. Even in Vijayanagara Empire, for example, within that limits of the Vijayanagara Empire, the Hindu society was flourishing and greatly. So many Dharmashastras were written at that time. So many Veda Bhashyas by Sayanacharya was written at that time. So many Agnihotras were performed, Yagyas were performed, everything happened, right? So within this larger Kali Yuga also, there will be periods of better prospects for dharma, and there will be periods wherein adharma is having its play. But as a whole, in Kali Yuga, this is nothing. As we progress further, the Kali Yuga deepens and adharma increases. Right? Yeah, the Puranas gives all this very, very beautiful, very scary, you could say, but very graphical images of what Kali Yuga will entail, as we go forward. We already see many things anyways. I hope I'm able to answer it. See, I gave a philosophical answer because I thought you were expecting that. The historical answer could be, as I mentioned, we have been under a colonization for the last 1200 years. The Islamic colonization followed by the British Christian colonization. So obviously we have been broken physically, socially, mentally, economically. So we are lost, and post independence we did not try to recover also. We copy pasted and adopted all Western Enlightenment values, Western Enlightenment systems, the democracy, the whole package is that. So now there is finally a realization that there is a loss of meaning, there is loss of ecology, there's loss of family values, there's loss of so many things. So now we are slowly trying to recover our lost meaning, our lost traditions, our lost philosophy, and even this whole session is a example of such an initiative to recover that. Once we recover, then we can build upon it and revive it and make it flourish it again. But that is a long process. It may take a few hundred years, at least a few decades to see some changes. And by Ishvara Anugraha, it will happen. I'm hoping. We will see.
Yeah. Okay. We have students here, and this course is meant for students. what is the dharma of the students?
So, the Samanya Dharma I'll be speaking tomorrow is definitely that is for everybody. So it's for students as well.
You may cover it tomorrow otherwise.
Yeah, I'll be covering it tomorrow. I'll be covering briefly. But more importantly, as a student, see, I think nowadays the very definition of student, you know, previously usually up to 16, 18 you study and then you get married and enter Grihastha Ashrama. But now this, sometimes this namesake Brahmacharya Ashrama extends to 30, 35 years. Actually, nobody's practicing Brahmacharya Ashrama, but still it's for namesake is there. But ideally, you know, what is Vidya? Vidya or knowledge, be it secular or be it Adhyatmika, basically all knowledge is sacred. All knowledge has its source in Ishvara. All knowledge flows from Sharada. So we have to have some modicum of respect and reverence to it. So as a student, we have to do justice to it. We have to be dedicated to it. And of course, I would say that since many of you are engineering student, I might say that I was an engineer. I completed my, I did a civil engineering. I worked in construction. Now I have left that field. But thing is, even when I was engineering, I knew that engineering is not everything. There are other areas. So I say that you have to cultivate that also, because for fuller life, all the purusharthas have to be balanced. So one cannot simply focus on career, one cannot simply focus on making money or landing a job. It has to be fullness of pursuit, fullness of life. That means pursuing what you truly love, what we call as hobbies, for example, but pursuing in a more serious manner on the side, that's fine. Trying out new things, new experiences, but always staying in the ethical path. So that is important. Nowadays, you know, when youngsters speak about trying to experience new things, that has a very different connotation than what you know, the elders in the family think. So I don't need to elaborate. Stay ethical life, stay healthy life, stay practice a good living, which is beneficial. So dharma is a truly beneficial. So always orient artha kama to dharma. So I think more than any specific instruction, this idea has to be borne in mind and internalized, that dharma is the compass, is the northern star, it's the pole star through which you can judge your life, evaluate your life, a self-evaluation. Artha Kama has to be evaluated, it has to be practiced within the confines of Dharma for the sake of happiness and contentment. Not because your mother says, or the father says, or the Shastra says, but for your own benefit, for your own well-being. I think that should be enough. We'll see tomorrow the Samanya Dharma.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Saugandhi ji. Saugandhi, are you there?
Hello, sir.
Okay, I think some internet problem she has. Okay, we'll do Prarthana and then do Janaganmana.
Prarthana, who is going to do?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Guruji?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can hear you. She has a problem. Some problem.
Om Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu.
Ma kaschid dukkha bhavet.
Om Shanti.
शांति शांति हरि ओम स्वस्ति.
Okay, let us now recite Janaganamana. All of you please stand up. Chala Chitbabu garu.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता. पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा. विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा. तव शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे. गाहे तब जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता. जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे. जय हिंद.
Jai. Okay, thank you, Savagandhi and Chala Chitbabu garu. Now